actually isn't it counting down? Should we all do the 10, 9, 8?
Well, we've gone live.
Why not? We can do that.
You've lost
10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to the Aintree Hospital in Liverpool.
Hooray!
We're in front of a live audience tonight in Liverpool, and it's our great pleasure to be here. This is the first time we've taken HealthChat on the road, and we've had a wonderful welcome today at this fabulous hospital. If you're going to be ill, come to Liverpool. This is the great place. This is the sickness capital of the world. We've had a great day, and more importantly, we've seen some fabulous stuff. And if you follow us at the Academy of Fabulous Stuff, you'll see that on the website in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think we've got so much material. I don't think we can put it all up at once. We'll break the service. Anyway, so we've had a great day. So here we are tonight, a rather different format for HealthChat. We've got 3 guests that we'll be talking about some of national issues that will interest you at home, and some local issues here that I'm really looking forward to getting into and having a bit of a sort out about what's going on. So if you're joining us on Periscope, have a great evening, and we hope you enjoy what's going on. Has anybody been to a HealthChat in London? Richard, have you been to a HealthChat in London? Okay, fine. London, that's a big place down south. Fine. Anybody interested in London? No, at all? No, okay, I've got to come back. Am I anchored on here forever? Okay, shit, right. Okay. I hate this.
Do as you're told.
I'm used to more cameras, darling. I can't just work with one camera. So the purpose of the HealthChat is to bring the big names in healthcare closer to the front line of healthcare, so we can have a look at who our leaders are, what they say, and what they think. Now, we can't do that, of course, without the help of our sponsors. One of them's in the audience, Interservice here, who provides services to this fine hospital, I think. And, of course, our main sponsors tonight, IMS Maxims. Can we all please give a big round of applause to IMS Maxims? And Michael, their medical director, is in the audience. Michael, would you like to come and say a few words? We're live on Periscope. Okay, you always make such a good job of speaking live to Periscope, but unfortunately tonight we don't have any time. we haven't got time to do. Okay, so now, so let me first of all introduce. We have 3 fascinating guests. One, a man of national standing with a fabulous career, and would you please give a very warm welcome to Sir Ian Gilmore. Thank you very much for joining us. Our paths have crossed, I think, previously. Last time we were on a stage together, we debated something, but we can't remember what it is we debated, but we do know Anne Widdecombe moderated the debate.
I gave both sides of the argument. I don't think we got a word in.
No, it didn't. It was quite. I can't remember really whether we won or not. But of course, your extremely eminent, fascinating career, most famous, I suppose, really for giving George Best a liver transplant.
Well, I'd like to say that I'm a liver surgeon. I'm not a liver surgeon, nor do I even actually look after George Best, but
well, you pontificated about it on the telly.
I was very involved in the interest it generated around the harms of alcohol and what sort of principles are applied when people are selected for a liver transplant. Yeah. And he was very unfairly dealt with in the media. There was this idea that he jumped the queue because he had money, but in fact, in the NHS, by and large, the NHS gets first chance at livers, and it's the ones that are rejected by the NHS that are picked up in the private sector.
Yeah. And what is the numbers now for transplantation? Do many where are we on the numbers for donors?
I think we're still very short of donors. There's still a very active discussion as to whether we should move to a system like Spain, for example, yes, where you have to opt out
Wales,
as a
yes.
donor.
Aren't Wales talking about
Yes, they are. I actually favour a different system, which is called, it's got a terrible name, mandated choice, but it means that everyone has to make a decision when they renew their driving license or they renew their passport. They don't have to say yes. There's no presumption that you're saying yes, as there is in the opt-out, but everyone has a duty of a citizen at some stage in their life, something that everybody does, like get their passport renewed, that you ask the question and have to answer it one way or the other, so everybody knows.
Why do you think we are so reluctant to confront that?
I don't think we do terribly well, perhaps in promoting organ donation. Some other countries have really upped their donation rates by enthusiastic marketing, if you like. I think we've improved a lot, and I think donation numbers have perhaps increased a bit. It's not particularly my area, so I couldn't comment on what the donation rates are like, but certainly we need more.
We've seen in the press, haven't we, recently, I think there's a move, because quite a lot of prospective donations don't end up being donated because the families step in and say, well, we really don't want our relative to be cut up or their organs removed. I think that there's a move, is there not, to make the wishes of the donor binding now?
I think they are binding already, is my understanding, but the problem is it's a very...
The family can refuse.
It's a very hard call for the, even if it's written down in a will, even if it's mandated, it's very hard call for the doctor to disregard the family's wishes, particularly immediately after death. So I think however you set it up, I think we need to shift public opinion. I think we need to shift it in all the different sectors of society, all the different ethnic groups.
Yeah. We talk loftily, don't we, about what the public think about these things. And let's ask the audience: do you think we should have an opt-out system? So the idea would be that if something unfortunate happens to you, you've got an organ that could be donated, the default position would be that you would be a donor and you'd have to opt out. Put your hand up if you think that would be a good idea. Put your hand up if you think it's not a good idea. Put your hand up and you think you're not going to die and you're going to carry on. Yes, that's right. Put your hand down, John. Yeah. So that's quite interesting. That's quite an overwhelming. Do you think that's? I mean, this is fundamentally an NHS-y, medical-y type audience who may get these issues in a slightly different way. But do you think that that's reflective of the population as a whole?
I don't think it's as high as that in the general population. I guess one of my concerns about lowering the drink driving limit is we might get less donors. Otherwise, I'm supporting a reduction in the drink driving limit from 18.
I have to say that until 2 years ago, I used to be a motorcyclist. And people then decided, they said, Roy, you're too old to be a donor. Sell your bike. Got rid of my bike. Good, well, let's introduce you to our next guest. I think some of you will know him very well. He's the leader of a local CCG. Will you welcome, please, Simon Bowles. Simon, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Feel a bit like the middle guest on Parkinson. Don't know if I'm Louis Walsh or Andrew Ridley, but we'll see how we get on.
Well, I guess we'll find out. So, I mean, I first came across you with that fantastic film that you made for Panorama.
Indeed, yes.
Who's seen Simon's Panorama film? You got a fan club. It's the Simon Bowers fan club. I thought this was HealthChat evening, but it's not. I should just tell people at home that the whole audience put their hands up. Yeah. So tell us about that. How did that happen? Did you approach them, or they approach you, or?
No, I didn't.
I've been in broadcasting, let me tell you, for 30 years, and I can never get Panorama to make a program. And I'm very pissed off that you've been around for 5 minutes and managed to do it.
Apart from the fact that it was very obviously my face, we did a piece with the local authority in The Guardian, and I was asked to write a piece.
The Guardian?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Who reads that? Oh, no. Sorry, Guardian.
I was asked to do an online piece about a day in the life of a clinical commissioner to try and describe what this job means.
God, that would have been a riveting read. Oh, wow, I can't wait.
It was easily the best thing that I've ever had ghostwritten, but the production company that we ended up being commissioned to do the very interesting role being a clinical commissioner. It's a bit like Chandler off Friends. I can't describe it to me more.
It's
She
very
doesn't know
boring
what I
being
do.
a clinical commissioners don't commission and they don't do anything, do they? They've got no money, they've got no imagination, they don't do anything new. Last year plus less 10%, you know, isn't that commissioning?
Don't tell them all.
Good answer.
Hopefully by the end of the health chat, we'll have you converted when you hear about what we're doing in health.
Yeah, do we tell us about the programme? So they picked you up from The Guardian.
Yes, and the production company followed a few of us round for a good 6 months previous winter.
Yeah.
And I think they cottoned on very quickly to the idea that what was happening in Liverpool was in many ways an amplified version of what was happening across the country due to our health needs and our poor health outcomes and our demographic. And they felt that they'd like to present it as something that could be lifted, shifted and dropped onto another health economy as a potential model for how to do things. And I think the story we hoped to tell was that Liverpool isn't just going to diddle with a few hospitals and try and keep the system sustainable, and it's not just going to plough a bit of money into the community, and it's not just going to think about public health, it's actually doing everything in one go, which feels more difficult every day as cash gets ever tighter, but I think the things that drive us in terms of patient outcomes and the financial realities push us even more to that conviction that if you don't do the difficult stuff like getting Liverpool more physically active, and if you don't have primary care and community services that are some of the best in the country, you can mess about with hospitals all you like, but the system will still fail.
I think it was a great programme. And did you have a body double when you did those moody pictures looking across the...
I wouldn't want to upset Ian, but there was quite a bit of single malt involved in that.
It was a great movie. And because you seem to be a dab hand at making great, because you just made another great movie, haven't you?
This is a kind of 3 minutes of my life displayed on YouTube for people to see. Yeah,
Who's seen the second movie? It really is. It's the best movie I've seen on why data and access to patient information is important. It's fabulous. If you haven't seen it, I mean, I get loads of this stuff to review, but I have to say this is the best I have seen yet. It's fantastic.
That's very kind of you, Roy. I don't think the health service does new media communication with the public very well. I don't think it ever has. And it was very clear when we were starting to talk to our public about we want to share confidential information about you with people who need that information to inform their decisions about your care. The idea that would be a camera on me or one of my managerial colleagues explaining it very dryly, it's just the vast majority of people will turn off after 30 seconds and watch a video about cats. So we worked with a local company that we knew, a local production company, 2 lads that used to be on Hollyoaks who are really, really used to the kind of YouTube space and understood the demographics because they'd studied their own YouTube channel loads. And we came up with this kind of slightly humorous, slightly dramatic, very, very honest way of explaining why we're doing it. And the response has been fantastic. And my kind of dream for this kind of thing is that we spread that across the rest of our programs through Living Well, through community, through hospitals, to explain in terms that the people of Liverpool will understand why we're going to have to do the things that we need to do for their health.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So how do we find it?
It's on YouTube on the Healthy Liverpool channel under We Share Because We Care.
For people in London, that's We Share. Sorry. Oh, yes, and of course, I've got the blonde with me tonight. And this is stand up, Terry. This is the famous blonde that we should give the blonde a round of applause. She's the real driving force behind. What's it called?
Fabanigesta.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but we have actually got it as one of our shares. So I think it's great. And of course, I suppose really the next question. Well, actually, there's 2 things I wanted to talk about. Firstly, well, let's do the other. The thing you showed me today. Now, this is an amazing piece of technology that you're working with from the university, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, through our digital program, which is one of the 5 transformations.
Okay, let me try and explain what it is. It's a tiny piece of thingamabob. What is it?
It's essentially
Keep going, Roy, that's great.
it's essentially a programmable sensor. It's a piece.
Yeah, but it's a tiny thing.
It's a tiny piece of electronic that's about stamp size, and now I
and
understand.
as thin as a stamp,
Even
and they can
smaller.
make it smaller.
And they can be embedded in dressings, they can be embedded in clothing, they can go behind watch straps, or they can just be stuck to the skin. And these things, which are in development currently with our partners at John Moores University in Liverpool, and these things can be programmed by using electromagnetic waves through the skin, so it's less radiation than you get from your Apple phone or your watch or whatever. Other smartphones and watches are available, obviously, but it can be programmed.
He's a broadcaster, born broadcaster.
It can be programmed to respond to and detect any molecule, essentially. So it's the future of blood testing and the end of needles for patients as we know it. Instantly you can think monitoring of diabetes has just changed overnight, but also if you think about those patients on chemotherapy, and when they get low immunity and low white blood cells, we bring them into hospitals which are reservoirs of infection to treat them, whereas actually we can detect it early.
I think it's very clever. And we saw the sepsis, where are the sepsis ladies we met today? There. This is the guy I told you about. You need to talk to him, because the patients can have one of these things just on their wrist, stuck on. It's tiny, and can do the blood test for you continuously. It is stunning technology.
And Roy, we're putting one on about an hour's time to monitor your blood alcohol level tonight.
I'm so pleased about that. I'll break it. Okay. And then, and are you still a GP in practice? Are you still?
Yes.
Yeah. So why management? What interested you in management?
I think initially it was born out of frustration, and there are people in the audience, and they know who they are, who nagged us, some of us who were angry, young, frustrated GPs in the days of practice-based commissioning, who could see how our patients were being failed by a system that existed for itself and not for them. And that brought us into, how can we fix this? This is doing my head in. And then suddenly Lansley came along with his bill, and we kind of inherited the checkbook. And it all got really serious, and this thing called accountability dropped on our heads. And before I knew it, my own wife was referring to me as a suit. But actually, the accountability has brought with it an ability for clinicians to really stand up and be counted. And I think, you made those comments about CCGs before, and I think in some areas they'd be fair. I think where history will judge CCGs fairly and well is where CCGs have allowed their clinicians to do what only clinicians can do, which is advocate for the patients and bring that frontline expertise.
It's not been a success everywhere, has it?
Of course it hasn't, no.
That's a great shame. Okay, well, let's introduce now our third guest, who is soon to be the Lord Mayor. I'm finished. I'm in charge.
What power?
No power at
It
all.
wouldn't happen after vote.
Councillor Ross Gladden, come on, Ross. Here you come. Do you want a bunk up? No. No. Leg up? No.
No.
Leg over? No. What is it? Okay.
Don't.
No. Sorry.
Just tell the story.
Sorry, Ross. Yeah. What?
Pleasure on it.
Oh well. I must just tell you, when we started out doing the health chats, one of our very first guests in London was a lady called Claire Girarda, who at the time was the chairman, wasn't she, chairman of the Royal College of General Practitioners. And I know you will know Claire, very feisty lady, arrived everywhere on a bike. So she turned up to our first health chat on a bike and chained her bike to the railings outside the King's Fund. Now, I don't know if any of you know about the King's Fund, but the King's Fund is a very snooty think tank in London. And the thought of having Claire Girarda's bike chained up to the railings didn't go down very well. Anyway, she had a helmet and all the rest of it, and lycra. I thought, blimey, this is going to be... Anyway, she disappeared in the ladies' loo, came out wearing a Chanel suit. Fantastic little short skirt. She's got a great physique. She's an athlete. She looked $1 million. And we took her into the interview.
You're making me feel really good.
As indeed do you, Ross. So she walked into the interview thing on a dais, 2 bar stools, right? She's about that high. The bar stools were higher than that, and of course we realised that her sitting on the bar stool, the ladies, they won't understand, her kind of knees were at I'm not sure I can... No.
Move on.
Yeah. So she said, how am I supposed to get up there? So I can't really tell the story because it's before the watershed. Anyway, she was a great sport. Anyway,
I actually split my skirt at the first royal visit I had to do in the city.
Really?
Yeah. I had to be shuffled out of the building with my back to the wall so that Prince Edward wasn't embarrassed. Nobody cared whether I won.
So what took you into local politics?
I've not a clue. I don't even know why you've asked me here. You've got two brilliant clinicians, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm here for.
Well, I'll tell you later.
Thank you. What took me into local politics? I've been political all my life, so there wasn't a question whether I would or wouldn't. But I've worked in local government as an officer for something like 30 years.
Really?
Yeah. Mainly as a housing professional, so I worked in housing and saw there the difficulties that health and housing and the impact on education and people and that sort of thing, and wanted to put that into. I wanted to have more power to dictate how people their lives could be better through the political field. So I'd always been in politics, but I took the opportunity when I finished to become a councillor.
Yeah. And you stood for election, you get in the first time?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I cried all evening and sobbed my socks off. I lost by 35 votes.
Oh,
the first time. Yeah, it was horrid.
Yeah, I remember when I was first elected, I used to be a councillor where I live, and I don't know if you felt the same, but I remember standing for election, and then the returning officer saying, "Okay, you've won. You're a councillor," and you stand there and you think, "Oh shit! Now what?" You get that feeling, don't you? You think, "What am I going to do now?"
It's an incredibly proud moment.
It is.
The fact
And it's
that people
humbling,
have trusted,
isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's humbling because
trusted you
exactly.
to do this is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So I think when I went on the council, the Joe Anderson, who is the mayor now, was the leader of the group. Because of my housing skills, he wanted me to take on the housing portfolio, which ended up in social care by some bizarre chance. And I did that for a couple of years, and then they took housing out of social care, but I carried on doing social care because I loved it.
But as a former housing expert, coming in with the housing, what we would now call the portfolio, in my day it was the housing department.
Yeah.
I mean, did you find it hard to resist being executive? I mean, really, councillors are there to hold the executive to account, aren't they?
It is. You don't get involved in day-to-day
No, it's tempting.
decisions. I think I'm more involved than I normally would be. I think I'm very much hands-on as a cabinet member than I think probably others would be. I'm very involved with the team that I work with. We're very, very close, all of us, and I think that's been driven to some extent by the cuts that we've experienced over the last 6 years, that it's needed a team.
Well, they've been horrendous. What have you lost? About 40% of your budget?
58% of the total budget of the council. But if I think about the adult care budget, in 2010, when we took over, the budget was £224 million. It's now about 164 million. And within that is about 30 odd million, which is better care fund money that comes passported through the CCG.
Yeah. And we'll talk a bit about the Better Care Fund perhaps later on, because it's not been a huge success, has it?
Well, it has for us because
Well, you've had all the health services money, that's why.
Well, yeah, but you have to
Yeah,
think
no,
about
but
it.
yeah, but.
No, you have
No,
to
but.
think. He's bad, isn't he?
We knew he was going to be, Russ.
Yes. We've spent it very wisely, and I think that it makes a very good business case the way that we've done it, because we've opened reablement centres, which actually we can get people out of hospital quicker, and the beds are cheaper than them staying in the
We've got a
hospital.
fantastic reablement. Are they here tonight? Anybody from the reablement team? No? Oh, what a shame, because I would big. Oh, you are here. Yeah. Well, the manager's here. Yeah. Where's your team? Reabling. They're out reabling
Yeah,
people.
they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. They've got a very unique way of doing it. I don't know if you know how good they are,
I'm sure.
but what they do is they take people home and then sort them out, rather than pretend to sort them out in hospital, send them home, and then find it doesn't work. I think they've got a really unique way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I wished I'd known you were here all day, because I would have taken you to some of our centres, which are real centres of excellence. So a bed in hospital costs about £500 a night. A bed in our reablement centre costs about £500 a week. And during that time, we can use various therapies to help them get them ready
So it's
to
kind
go
of step
home.
down.
It's step down. We're
Yeah.
also going to be looking at doing step up, so that what we need to be doing is keeping all the people out of hospital, not just it's keeping them out of hospital, so that they don't really need to be there. They shouldn't be there.
Yeah. And soon you're going to be the mayor.
Lord Mayor, not the Mayor. We
No,
have a Mayor as well.
Well, let's get this organised. Okay, what is exactly the hierarchy here then?
Well, we've got a Mayor, an elected Mayor, so he stands
Oh, I
for
see,
election
right,
each
yeah,
year
yeah,
again.
yeah.
So we've got a Mayor who stands for 4 years,
Yes.
and we have a civic Mayor, Lord
Yeah.
Mayor.
So you are Madam Mayor?
No, I am the Lord Mayor.
Madam Lord Mayor?
Yeah, I'm still the Lord Mayor.
So it's
even
still
though I'm
the
female.
male Lord Mayor?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But my
Mayor-
husband's the consort rather than the Lady Mayor.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
It's always a joke
Yeah.
when
Yeah, it is,
when
yeah.
it's a woman mayor, the bloke turns up as the mayoress. People get very disappointed. But he's got a nice big chain of office.
Yeah.
I've seen the chain of office. It's an enormous thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's
Yeah. Not
nice.
as big as Manchester's though. Manchester's.
The hierarchy of chains. But it knackers all your clothes. I know. I'm all mine.
Yeah.
They got these little pins. You pin it on your.
No, you've got to have loops put on all your jackets.
Yes.
And they do, but they do pin it to the back, one at the back.
Oh, I had all my suits ruined by pinning the bloody thing on.
No,
Didn't get
it's
that.
not
Yeah.
good.
But it's nice to go to a party and know that you're wearing the nicest necklace, isn't it? Yeah. Even if you are a bloke, it's Madam Bling.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Have you got a charity for the year?
I've got several charities. I've got two I've picked. I'm going to have one more. The two I've picked is the Royal Hospital, our charity.
The Royal?
Yeah, because for the
Excuse me?
the building new Royal, but there's extra things. So my dad died about 6
Is
years
that
ago.
Ian Gilmore's influence?
Yeah.
Yes, he says benignly.
If I can just explain. My dad died about 6 years ago, and he died in a hospital in Derby, and the last 2 weeks of his life he had to spend in hospital, and nobody wants to be there. But in the new hospital in Derby, they all had private rooms, so we could spend a lot of time with them. They also had a flat on the ward, and so me and my sister and his grandchildren, we spent all that time there. We could stay and sleep if we wanted. There was a bathroom with a shower and all those facilities. We could eat on ward. So it meant that we got to spend a lot of time with him before he died. And I just want that sort of facility for other people. And I think the way you treat people and families at the point when people die is how well they grieve afterwards. I think, that sort of care is really important. So part of my charity is to help provide some of that when the new hospital's built. So that's why I'm doing that. And the other charity is Tom Harrison Health, which looks after military veterans who have substance misuse issues. So it's a great charity. It works really hard. It gets no help from anybody.
Great detox team here. Are they here tonight? We met them today. And the bereavement team, we met them as well. Are they here tonight, the bereavement team? No?
So I'm pressing all buttons, aren't I?
Absolutely,
None of them
yeah.
are
I don't know
here.
why they're not here. I think, I don't know whether it's me or you that you want to.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Anyway.
Roy.
Pardon? It's me. Okay. Well, listen, you're very welcome. Well, look, I mean, tonight really is as much about you as it is me. I know there are a lot of local and interesting issues that you want to talk about. The important thing is don't go home tonight thinking, I wish I'd asked that question, and I didn't. So if you want to ask a question, put your hand up, please, and we'll come to you anytime during our conversation. We'd be very pleased to talk to you. So, I mean, I suppose really we can't have a couple of doctors here and not talk about the junior doctors' strike. A contract tonight has been imposed upon the junior doctors. So, Dr. Bowers, did you support the junior doctors?
But you were looking at me then because you thought I was so youthful I must still be a junior doctor. Yes, myself and all of my colleagues in our practice, if there'd have been a picket line, we would have stood on it, yeah.
Why? Because if you looked at the settlement that was on offer from David Dalton, the junior doctors' hours have been reduced, their pay had been increased, there were guarding arrangements in the hospital to make sure that they weren't exploited. What is it that they're striking about?
I think, and I'm not speaking for the colleagues here, my understanding of it is that all of those concessions, as far as the BMA were concerned, were very welcome. However, the central lie, whatever you want to call it, around spreading 5 days into 7 and doing that cost neutrally and yet still improving care was never dealt with. There isn't a clinician that I've spoke to that does those sums and end up with the answer that Jeremy Hunt ended up with.
But hang on, the chief negotiator, Sir David Dalton, he does it in his hospital. He does it now within the existing envelope. And there are plenty of hospitals that do seamless 7 days. It's not just him.
And there are only 20 out of 200 chief execs of hospitals in the country who think the contract imposition is the right thing to do. The vast majority of other hospital chief execs in the country can see the risk to the care that those patients deliver. I mean, I'm not going to hark back to the bad old days. I was a junior doctor in the days where there was no European Working Time Directive and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also the care we deliver has changed immeasurably since then. And yes, old, frail, vulnerable people suffered because I was tired and unsupervised. We simply cannot do that anymore. It's a completely
But the new
different
contract
idea.
stops that. The junior doctors are much more protected than they were under the old contract.
And I think it's far more to do with the overall picture of what will happen to a junior doctor's working week when you consider Saturday and all the evenings to be normal working
But
time.
all the nurses here, for all the nurses, Saturday's a normal working day. Why shouldn't it be the same for
It's
doctors?
a normal working day for junior doctors as well, but it's that the fact in terms of their clinical delivery of
But they get a
service,
bung for doing it.
they get a bung that brings their income up to a level that's commensurate
And that's
with
why
their
they
level
had
of
the 11%
responsibility
pay rise.
and expertise, but that wasn't applied fairly across all junior doctors.
There was an argument over some anaesthetist additional pay, which was still the matter for discussion. But the BMA pretty much settled on pay.
I
I
think
think it's just, Ian, you must have trained in the days when you did a 200-hour week. And
Yeah, some might think before the NHS was formed. Quite before that.
I get accused of working with Florence Nightingale. I've been around.
I mean, I'm a bit more ambivalent than Simon about it. I think both sides have not come out of it very well. I think Jeremy Hunt and the department have been, I think, extremely poor in their public relations. They've been unnecessarily confrontational. But I also think the junior doctors haven't got their message over very clearly, and they are mixing issues around patient safety with financial issues. Now, they're not as well paid as some of their brethren working in the city and so on. But I don't think they've really got over.
But that is their vocational choice, isn't it? I mean, our doctors are the brightest and the best, and they probably could work in the city and earn a fortune. But they're clever
That's
enough.
right,
but they choose to be a doctor.
That's right, and that's what I was saying. I don't think that we're going to get a huge amount of public support when they say their salaries start at 30,000, go up to 70,000, and they're wanting an extra for working on a Saturday. There are patient safety issues buried in there, but they're buried so deep down, I don't think the message got out for me. So I'm still ambivalent about the result, and it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen with the imposition of a contract.
Yeah.
You know, there are only so many jobs in Australia for junior doctors to go and fill.
You wouldn't really want to have to deal with the BMA over the next 3 months, would you, on any matter?
I mean, I have a view that the BMA would benefit from being restructured in some way, because at the moment each of the craft committees, whether it's the GPs or the junior doctors, have an autonomy that can't be overridden by the council. And I think if you're going to have a council and a chairman of council, they should have some way of taking a lead.
Is that
rather
right?
than
Because
being
funny enough, I dealt with this issue, and I looked at the BMA's constitution, and I thought the BMA's main council had to sign off the craft committees, as you put it. And there was a rumour going around at one stage that the junior doctors would have settled some time ago, but the BMA Grand Council was holding out.
No, I don't think it's that way around. I think the council, if anything, has been pushed in a direction it may not have wanted to go. At least not all the council. I think the annual representative meeting seems to hold great power, but that only happens once a year.
Simon, who's won this dispute, do you think? Have the BMA lost it?
I think it's Vietnam of a dispute, to be honest. I don't think there's a winner. I think patients have lost. I think that the best and brightest had choose to work in banks, and they might just choose that now. I think I would not currently recommend either of my two lads to do a career in medicine, at least while we've got the government that we've currently got. That's a very personal view. There would only be winners if our junior doctors went back to work tomorrow, understanding their value to the nation, with a freedom to drive up safety and quality. And I don't think that's been achieved. I think the profession now goes back to work tomorrow. The juniors feel angry, I'm sure, and the GPs and the consultants feel where next?
Well, I think it is quite difficult with the trust, because the trusts have been caught in the crossfire, haven't they?
Yeah, I've got a lot of sympathy for the trust.
This is nothing to do with the trust.
Yeah, they're the employers.
Exactly. I mean, we've got the medical director of the trust. Let's find out what he thinks. How are you going to be? What's your view on all that? So I'll hold the microphone because I know you are like.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the dispute is not with the trust, but we are obviously taking the brunt of the action where our patients are. But we've handled the dispute very well here, I think. I mean, we've had a very good relationship with our unions, which we want to maintain. And I think it's been handled as well as it possibly could have been. And the most important thing for me as a medical director was to make sure that we kept the patients safe. And I think we've done that. But I'd agree really with Simon. I think there isn't a winner or loser at this stage. And I can see this running for quite some time.
It's the damage of the relationships. The gentleman here behind you looks like he's going to say something. No, I'm not going to let you on.
I don't blame you. Mine's Mike Travis. I'm an RCN steward. And one of the things I think... Yeah.
How did you get in here?
Because actually, this is a democratic organisation. But one of the interesting things is I want to pick up is that this issue about pay is so misunderstood by even people in their own pay system. This issue about the junior doctors getting 11% and a reduction on their weekend pay is a loss of pensionable pay, and that's what the whole issue is about just now. It's about pensionable pay, because that's the most accurate way of judging what you're going to gain and to lose. So anything that happens, so for example, the pay review body for nurses and midwives report at the end of March, and they are coming after hour and social hours, and it's impossible for nurses. If nurses lose their social hours completely, for example, as an extreme, that's 20% of take-home pay out of their pockets.
Can we just...
Okay, and then...
But I do want to ask you, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What about the loss of the bursaries? Is that going to affect the number of nurses?
Well, I actually think now is with the loss of the bursaries, what you will have with the introduction of nurse assistants is that if you come from a financially secure background, you will go on to be a registered nurse. And if you come from a background where I come from, which is Highton, which is a low performing, poor education, really poor area, you become a nursing assistant. And what we're seeing is the real threat of the reintroduction of some sort of role again, enrolled nurse, and total discrimination against that group of staff ever, because they will do all the work, getting none of the recognition or any of the pay or any of the career progression.
Well, thank you. Listen, don't encourage him. John, can you get a microphone to the lady right at the back? Sorry, he just had a sex change. Sorry, I see a blonde head and that. I'll just get to you in a minute. So I just want to put your hand if you think the junior doctors were right to go on strike. Put your hands up. Okay, that's pretty overwhelming, isn't it?
You are in Liverpool, right?
Well, that's true. But Ross, I mean, local government. Actually, I remember, my day in local government. A lot of local authorities were beset with strikes. It would, but you've actually, you've had a bit of a history up here of strikes and so on, and some pretty colourful characters running the council. But the local government seems to have calmed down more now. Is it more settled, or is it just you outsourced all the services?
Yeah, it could be. No, I don't really know why that is the case, but we seem to have less disputes certainly than we used to. But we've got. I think we've got better relationships really with the trade unions than we used to have.
Yeah. I think for the NHS, the biggest employer in the world, our industrial relations is pretty poor, really. Right, John, are you ready, please? Yeah. Yep. It's off. Don't give him the microphone. You'll never get it.
Too late. I've already got it.
Don't give people the microphone, John.
Jeremy Hunt appeared on the Andrew Marr show on Sunday.
So can you just tell us who you are?
Sorry, my name's Chris McCleary. I work here in ophthalmology.
We can see you now.
Jeremy Hunt appeared on the Andrew Marr show on Sunday, and a lot of what he was talking about was to do with there not being enough senior medical cover. Do you think that the junior doctors was just a forewarning and the consultants are next?
Well, that is interesting, Ian, isn't it? Because I'm told the consultant's contract is oven ready. but the BMA held it back because they didn't want to have a settled contract in the middle of a disputed contract. I guess we'll find out.
Yes, I've no idea what negotiations gone on over the consultants, but again, I think Jeremy Hunt hasn't handled it very well. He's implied that all consultants go home at 5 p.m. on Friday evening and don't reappear again till Monday, and they'll need the contract sorted out, and that doesn't require them to do elective work out of hours. Now, I think 90% of consultants didn't know they had that clause in their contract, so it was, I think, misguided to make an issue of it. I think there's been a sea change in the last 10 years with the way consultants work. It's no longer a consultant-free zone at weekends like it might have been 30 or 40 years ago. I don't think the juniors are left unsupported in the way they used to be. I think the training opportunities are better. But that said, the junior doctors are under more pressure than they've ever been, particularly in the medical specialties. We are not recruiting into specialties that used to be the pinnacle of the profession, like cardiology, or people that would have to be medical registrar as part of their training do not want to go into those specialties, because the medical registrar is the most stressed, put on role in the hospital. So I think we need to seriously do something about that.
What do you think then that perhaps because hospitals and local government really offer such vital services to the public, that people who are working in these public services should not be allowed to go on strike like the police force? Put your hand up if you think nurses and doctors and local government should be like the police force and not allowed to go on strike. Put your hand up if you think that. Pardon?
Only if we get the same pension.
Only get the same pension. I don't know. Okay. Put your hand up if you agree. So no one thinks.
I'm going to get more.
Yeah?
I don't.
You think?
I
yeah.
don't think we should strike.
Yeah. I personally, I find it very hard to even think about how people working in this sector could go on strike. And I'm not being critical of them, I just personally find it very difficult. And when I ran my trust, I had the first and only no strike deal ever in the NHS. And we got along perfectly well with the trade unions. Jump on the end of check shirt, John.
I think that's Ian Pearce Hayes. I'm a nurse. I actually teach in the University of Liverpool. On the picket line yesterday, I actually asked that question of a doctor, and what she said to me was interesting, because I agree. I think for doctors who work so hard, these are kids from 11 and 12 that are compelled, and it's such a competitive field to get into. These kids that work hard to actually become doctors, so they don't do it. I agree in terms of vocation, whether they would do other things, and we will see with that. What this doctor said was that, one, she said she had no qualms. She'd never even thought of actually taking strike action, but she had no qualms in taking that action because something had to be done. And I think, people have talked about whether it was about pay, whether it was regarding hours, and there are other things that have actually mixed in with that, but people can actually see what's actually happening in terms of we're harming patients, in terms of when patients are coming into hospital, certainly, and that's given them no option. And to see people who have worked so hard actually making that decision, she said she had no qualms, and for me that answers that question, and that's the challenge. 96% of doctors voted for strike action.
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, it was overwhelming. I agree. I was on the picket line yesterday in Westminster, and I did some interviews on which are on the are they on their website? Yeah, on the Academy of Fabulous Stuff
YouTube account.
Website. If you go to our YouTube account, you'll see I did an interview with a very articulate junior doctor who explained to me for the first time really why it was they were on strike, because otherwise all the rest of it I thought had been more of a polemic and very emotional. Well, it's an interesting topic, and thank you for that. Let's turn our attention now to more local issues. Ros, you're busy looking at Devo Liverpool. I see that you've made some great strides towards doing that. Why have you left the health service out?
It was a conscious decision, and in discussions with the CCG, we decided to do that because we've done a lot of change over the past 6 years, and we're one of the few local authorities, I think, where we're working very closely with the clinical commissioning group. And I think
Well,
we made,
which one? There are three.
no, there's only one for Liverpool.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I know that they fight like ferrets in a sack, apparently. Is that right? Put your hand up if you think the CCGs fight like ferrets in a sack.
With who?
Go, put your hands up, yeah, stick it on them, yeah, quite right.
With
It's
who?
me and that lady think that.
Oh, right. Who are they fighting with?
Each other, I think.
Oh, right.
Yes, that's your ferrets in a sack.
Yeah, but I just wondered who they were fighting with. I don't know. We seem to have come on a long journey. I think, you know, we were working together when they were in Shadow Fall.
Yeah.
We've had some hell of a rows, especially me and Simon actually from the big thing. But you know, that's part of developing relationships, and we've ended up with a great deal of mutual respect.
Because Roz is always right.
Sounds like a very happy marriage, doesn't it?
No, it's been a really great relationship, I think, for me.
But you can't look. Let's be
I
serious.
do lots of things in the
never
rest
mind
of the
about all this
country, and
loving.
it doesn't.
You can't have Devo and not have health, can you?
No, but I think that's we're going to be looking at in phase 2.
Well, but you can't
What
do
we're
it.
slowly doing now is actually looking at the city region. It's only very recently that we've been able to involve the city region in any discussions that we've had, because we've had quite a bit of animosity between the other parts of the region in Merseyside that has not enabled us to have really grown-up conversations. So it's only just started now. So we've got Catherine Shearing here, who's the lead officer for the CCG, who's very involved in the relationships now with other parts of the region. So we're all doing that. We've just developed now, pooling budgets, a joint director of commissioning between us and the clinical commissioning group. So that relationship is maturing. And you can't go from phase 1 to phase 10 overnight. You have to do it in a measured way. And we're doing what's right for Liverpool at the moment, and then we'll start involving the city region.
I think that's spot on, and it is absolutely what's right for Liverpool, and from a CCG point of view, our wider colleagues in Merseyside, because we've got a massive change programme that we outlined in the Panorama programme around needing to do care differently, health and social care differently. And to destabilise that with another organisational change now.
Doesn't your programme, your excellent BBC programme, doesn't that actually say that you do have to be much closer to the local authorities?
You can do it now.
Yeah. The
You don't
powers
need legislative change.
Who says you could do it? Do you say
Catherine, my boss.
Are you
So I swap seats.
Hang on, we better hear from the boss.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Catherine Shearing from Liverpool CCG. Absolutely, you can do it anyway. And we've got joint appointments, we've got full budgets, we're looking at integrated provision across primary, community and social care. And I actually think, if you look at what's happened in Manchester, and I know it was a headline in the HSJ yesterday, but we worked this out months ago.
Yeah.
Devolution has resulted in greater centralised control, not more.
But if you all got together, you could cut your overheads, your back office costs, get rid of a few costly managers like you, and we can save a shitload.
We can do that anyway. You don't need devolution.
No, you don't.
just don't
Section
need it.
70.
Who thinks you need devolution? Put your hand if you think you need devolution. Come on, right? Okay, let's come round there. Find out what this lady says. Why is it? Oh, people put their hand up. What was it at the back, John? Where was it? Where's the lady? Yes, you have. Yes. Tell us who you are. Can I have your PIN number? Where you live?
My whole microphone.
No.
I'm Linda Brooke. I'm Children's Palliative Care Consultant from Alderhay. Liverpool, Merseyside, we've got huge challenges. We have a fragmented healthcare system with lots of specialist trusts, and as a consequence, our patients get a very fragmented service or at risk of. We have to find local solutions and join things up to deliver better care.
I mean, it does. Looking at this as an outsider, you've got 3 CCGs, haven't you?
In North Mersey, yes.
In North
Yeah.
Mersey.
Well, but I mean, looking at the sort of geographical.
Certainly, from this hospital's spread of geography, they
Yeah.
have to
And
deal
it
with
drives the
these
hospital
CCGs.
balmy having to deal with 3 CCGs. Is there anybody here from one of the other CCGs? Oh, right. Can you get in the middle there, John? Yeah. I mean, it just seems to me you need to bang your bloody heads together to get rid of these CCGs and the cost.
Good evening, Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were in the audience.
Really?
Just tell us all who you are, darling.
Fiona Taylor. I'm the Chief Officer. of South Sefton CCG and Southport and Formby CCG. What would you like me to tell you?
Well, I want to know why. If you look at the geography, we've got 3 CCGs here. And as an ignorant outsider who just sort of helicoptered in for the day, it just seems to me, I can't understand why you've got 3 CCGs. Because it does bugger up the hospital. I mean, today we saw some services that they want to expand into the communities, and they can't do it because only one CCG will buy the service, and so they can't say it's. I'll tell you, it's the enablement service. They can't say where do you live, love, will enable you, but not you.
Okay.
Because the CCGs can't agree.
Well, I don't think it's the CCGs can't agree. I think what we're trying to deal with is history and financial spend and income that's coming to the different places in the past. As a nurse, a long time ago, it must be really frustrating if I was sat in that situation on any ward where you've got to work out, I think it's usually the terminology around here, what colour your wheelie bin is, to know what book to pick up, to know which discharge process to have. But we've got...
Wait, what colour your wheelie bin?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's what the people... You can tell from my accent I'm not from this end of the East Lancs.
John, what colour's your wheelie bin, mate? Purple.
Purple.
Purple. When I first knew John, he would have said, actually, it's aubergine. Purple. What's happened to you?
So, in terms of trying to change that, the legislation was such that CCGs were emergent from the ground. So what we've got are 3. Catherine, myself and Diane Johnson, who's the accountable officer, work together. We work within a structure. But more importantly, Simon sat up there. I think Fiona Lemons is somewhere down the front. They are GPs and clinicians. Oh, I've just seen them. Paul Affinity down there. We have got. We've got the Healthy Liverpool programme, particularly the realignment of hospital-based care, is very much driven from Liverpool. But as CCGs, we are absolutely glued together to make sure that what we're doing is not fragmenting.
Well, you're not. You've got the wheelie bin. John, get the microphone up. Right. Hang on, just a minute. Go on. Tell me about the wheelie bins.
The wheelie bin. Well, each local council has a different wheelie arrangement. I happen to live in Crosby, which is South Sefton, and we have a grey bin.
No, I don't mean the colour.
It is about the colour of the bin.
It's a metaphor, dear, for crappy services.
It is a particular challenge for
It's
entry.
like, when you stop using these, it's a challenge. It's a balls up, right? You can't work together. And why are we here? We're here for the patients, right? And I don't expect to come in a hospital with a badge that says I've got a purple wheelie bin, can I be re-enabled? It's balmy, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
We're going to work very closely with our...
Right, come in, you'll have to help me here. Right. There you go. Just, what are you going to have to... hang on, I might be... No, I can't. Yeah, I never trust people, Holly, right? The thing is, I'm not wearing a condom, so I can't share a microphone. Anyway, right, here we go.
Hi.
Tell us who you are.
I'm Claire, I'm a physiotherapist and I work at Aintree Hospital.
Aintree.
Yeah.
Jolly fine hospital it is too.
It is. I moved here from Southport Hospital not too long ago and we have exactly the same issue there. Covering more than one geographical borough is an absolute nightmare for trying to refer patients onto further services because they all offer completely different services. One example is the intermediate care pathway. Basically, one route you can have a level 1, 2 or 3, one route you can have a level 1 only, and otherwise you have to go down the social route, and it's absolutely ridiculous the way that we can't do the best for our patients within ongoing services. We're meant to be taking things more into the community, but we're not actually looking at working together within all the boroughs.
Do you know what? If I was sitting in this audience and I just heard that, I'd give that speaker a round of applause.
Can I tell you where we've solved it, Roy?
No, I was going to ask Ian for his view.
Well, I think what's absolutely crucial is we get a Liverpool City region working together.
Yeah.
I don't think it...
Well, it's not working together, is it?
There is, Liverpool City region is moving forward. We're going to have a single elected mayor. I think the local authorities are working much better together. The CCGs, 6 of them, and the footprint of the city region are working much better together. We will learn a lot from Manchester in terms of the powers coming down. But devolution is about government passing the buck in some ways, responsibility down the line. But I think what we want to do is partnership working, and if that is best in merging organisations, so be it. But I think getting a city region where everybody feels part of this region is the key thing, and health can come along on the note paper second rather than first.
But when you hear frontline staff like that young lady who just spoke, where, and I've seen it today, I mean, we've had a fantastic day at this hospital with some really innovative new ideas, and time and again we've been told, you know what, we can't actually get this out there and implement it in the way we want to because some CCGs won't commission it. Well, for God's sake.
There's a way to solve it, and there is one.
Well, you should all get together.
There's one part of the current changes where we have solved it. Where the first thing we did was look at the colours of the wheelie bins and solve the problem, and that was in our joint programme that we have all across North Mersey called the ILEX programme, which is about sharing up of clinical records. We realised at a very early stage that if we as Liverpool CCG tried to champion this just for Liverpool, it put this trust particularly in an absolute mess. So we've got a situation where we started the programme with Liverpool, South Sefton and Southport and Formby. So that covers the coast of the Mersey, all the way from just short of Woollyback Landing Widnes, all the way up to where it gets posh in Southport. And so that's a huge population chunk that we covered with our record sharing. And as frontline clinicians and staff started to see the benefits, so the messages went up to boards and the messages went up to organisations, and Knowsley CCG came on board, and St Helens CCG are talking to us about coming on board, and now the population that is covered by this, and it is just, it's a processy thing, but it is actually in terms of clinical benefit, sharing data for absolutely every professional needs to see it. It doesn't matter what colour your wheelie bin is. So if the argument is strong enough for your frontline professionals that they can sell it to their organisations, you can nail it without having one amorphous blob of a commissioner and lose your local commissioning.
The whole commission thing, I just don't know why. I mean, do you think? I mean, I'm not quite sure how to put this, Ross, but I mean, do you think you're not being ambitious enough in what you're trying to achieve?
No, I think we're achieving quite a lot, given the starting place that we had. And I refer you back to the Mayor's Health Commission, which Serene chaired. And he, over a period of a year, you did a lot of digging, a lot of talking to people, finding out where we were in the city and where we needed to go. And the results of that report is very much taking us forward into where we're going to be in up to 2020 and beyond. So it is about, you know, those ambitions that we've got. And actually part of that report that Serene did was about challenging the hospitals to say, come on, get together. We've got a lot of hospitals in this city that don't work together very effectively, and that's quite a difficult thing to do. We've now got an agreement for the hospitals to be working closer together, so they're not in constant competition with each other. So that's a really big move forward just for us. And you don't.
I mean, we've got to get on to the elephant in the room, I suppose. Why don't the two hospitals? Well, they're not going to merge because you know, two turkeys don't make an eagle. But why doesn't one take over another?
I think what we have now.
But why? Well, let's find out. Why can't we just get these two hospitals? I mean, you've got one that will never be a foundation trust all the time God makes little apples, and you've got one that is a foundation trust. So why doesn't one just take over the other, like they've just done down in Frimley Park, where they've taken over Wexton? They said, yeah, Wexton's never going to be an FT. Why don't we just take it over?
Absolutely agree. You need to ask a chief executive. I'm not a chief executive. They're the guys who make the decisions, and they're the guys that can make this happen. There's been all sort of smoke in this area about only foundation trusts can take over non-foundations and all this sort of stuff. I'm a mere clinician. I don't know the details of that. but the clinical community between the two acute trusts are unanimous in wanting them to come together.
Well, technically, if you bring two FTs together, then there has to be a new regulation in Parliament because their constitutions are set up by Act of Parliament. It's easy to do. For a non-FT, for an FT to take over a non-FT, it's even easier to do. It's not a big deal.
Tell them how to do it right.
Well, if you pay me enough, I will. Right, who have we got here? Yes, ma'am. Tell us who you are.
Rosie Cooper.
Hello, Rosie.
Hello. And there's a great assumption in everything you've spoken about today, in that eventually a hospital decides something, the commissioners, whoever they are, should buy into it.
Yeah.
Well, for example, Southport Normscope is a hospital too, and the CCG can decide what they want here. And I think from what you're saying, you're not taking into account what the board at the Royal, and I'm no prisoner of either of these boards, you're not taking into account what they think, and the very fact that you spend obviously the day here and with Neil Goodwin, Aintree is not going to be the centre of the universe. All hospitals in Liverpool will play an essential part in delivering service right across the piece. And yes, CCGs were, Health and Social Care Bill broke decent-sized PCTs down into CCGs, and I have no doubt in the end they will merge and we'll go back to, we'll reinvent the future again. But I think Aintree cannot be selling the idea that it is going to run the world. It isn't. It is about. So it's not about forcing the Royal into merging or forcing the people of Liverpool to do what Neil Goodwin wants.
Well, I don't think. Let me be clear. It's me talking and not them. Right, gentleman here. Can you reach that gentleman there?
So my name's Chris Grant, I'm a clinician here, and I also work for Liverpool CCG. And there's a Martin Luther King quote about riots being the voice of the unheard, and he wasn't talking about physical riots, he was talking about sort of the language we've just used, and we've just heard very clearly there from lots of people in the audience, language is not compatible with decent healthcare. Decent healthcare is about trust and values and respect, and if the more we use language which is about individuals, organisations or people and roles, the less we get away from what our job is, which is to serve the population. And so the point I was going to make is that the reason why we're here is because the clinical community, both primary care, secondary care, got together and went back to basics, which is how do we serve our population. And the clinicians at Aintree and the clinicians of Royal have got together and decided the best way to serve their population is by getting together and working together. This is not about individuals, this is about serving patients and populations. And I think the most important point is language.
I think, it's interesting you should say that. I mean, it just looks to me like this is perfect for an accountable care organisation that sits in a devolved political infrastructure where you just get on and look after yourselves. I mean, given that freedom and that opportunity is now available, my question is inquiring, really, why you wouldn't want to do that.
You might do, but you let the form follow the function. Chris has just hit the nail completely on the head there, that actually the Health of Liverpool programme at the very start said these are the high level and then the more detailed outcomes we want for the people of our city region. If you stick to that, and you stick religiously and maniacally to that, all the other stuff comes out.
But you can see that they can't be innovative because you've got a plethora of CCGs who can't decide on what they want to buy.
But I'll just explain to you one way that we can, and it's about making those guiding principles of how we redesign. And the practicalities of it are based on, Fiona's got a spot on, they're based on history and stuff. At this moment in time, Liverpool CCG has more financial weight to throw around than our neighbours. It's not going to be like that in 2 years' time. And that kind of equity of financial mess that we'll all find ourselves in. all of our authorities have been cut to fairly similar levels, haven't they? I think Liverpool often shouts loudest, but they're all in the mess. Actually, if you stick to what's right for your population, what are your clinical outcomes you want to get? One of the first things I learned as a clinical commissioner is good quality is always cheaper than doing it wrong. Then you iron them out. So those problems with discharges absolutely exist at the moment. The whole principle of the Health of Liverpool programme, whether you're looking at our little 450,000 population in Liverpool or the whole city region, is to solve that and is to iron it out. But you don't do that by looking at Simon Stevens' list and going, that one. You decide what outcomes you want.
I'm not sure he's got a list.
You let the form follow the function.
Yeah. I've never been a great fan of that, but anyway. Tell us, Ross, I mean, you hold the key to one of the big problems that we've got, and that's looking after the frail elderly that come into the hospital and it's difficult to get them home safely and looked after safely. You've had a horrendous time with your budgets. I mean, I'm just amazed that you can still turn the lights on. What is the future for adult social care, do you think?
Well, it's very much working with partners to be able to deliver services.
So you think the Better Care Fund has that worked for you?
It isn't just about the Better Care Fund, it's about all of us working better together.
Yeah.
And it is, you know, what we talked about before about organisations don't matter. We keep saying this over and over again. The patient is the one that matters. The person is at the centre of care. And the organisations, whoever delivers that service, doesn't matter. We should all be working
But it
together.
creates, well, no, I'm not sure I agree with that. It creates an interface, and one of the big management no-nos is interface. I mean, organisations maybe don't matter, but how you are organised matters a lot.
But, I mean, one of the things we've done in Liverpool that we did a pilot for last year is multidisciplinary teams working in GP surgery, so that we're combining social workers, nurses, physiotherapists, all those people that make up clinical teams and social work teams are working together, and it's been a huge success because for the first time you've got people sharing information about individuals. You're getting social care up front ahead of things, so that GPs are actually saying to me, this is a great idea, we wanted this 20 years ago, because we're actually getting GPs and social workers going out to visits together and saying this is what we need, because the answer to every medical question is not necessarily more medicine, sometimes it's a social resolution. So working together has got to be the thing. I don't know where a medical event happens and social care takes over. The government has massively cut social care because it's within the local authority. But what it's done is social care has been the front and back door of the hospitals for years. And what they've done is they've cut the front and back door away incredibly. So we can't do that care that we used to be able to do anymore. So the only way to do is to work very closely with our partners in the service and the CCG.
Ian, when you wrote, I was just saying, you wrote your report. I wrote a not dissimilar. I'm coming. Yep, I've got you. Thank you. I wrote a similar report for in London, healthcare in London. And what I found is, I think what you found is the lack of a strategic hand to develop services.
I must say, I was absolutely overwhelmed by the enthusiasm that everyone who came to give evidence had for working together better, irrespective of organisations. All right, there are inefficiencies. We did find places in the third sector, in social care, in healthcare, that were trying to do the same thing. And certainly organisational processes can be improved. But I think it's the people that we were struck by, and their willingness to change, their willingness to embrace an integrated form of healthcare, of joining up community care, secondary care, primary care. The other thing I just want to say, Roy, because it's really important, because nearly all our commissioners were the great and good from London, people like Aradazi, Cyril Chandler, people you know well. They all came up to Liverpool and said, my God, you're halfway there. You've got a really well-developed primary care service. You've got an incredible enthusiasm. People have moved away from this idea where Liverpool was thought to be a headplace in the centre. And so I'm really very optimistic.
So we're optimistic about the willingness and the desire of people to work together on the ground. I think you see that all the time. But what it seems to me is it's not just here, but in other parts. There's a lack of strategic direction to make this work in what is a disaggregated supply side.
Absolutely right, but of course it's very difficult to have a strategic direction when governments come along and reorganise the structure every 2 or 3 years. And CCGs are finding their feet with great difficulty in many areas. Just to reorganise them blindly because you think you'll save some back office costs is wrong. And I think Simon and Chris Grant are absolutely right. We have to see what is right for patients, patient care, patient flows, and then put the form around that.
Okay, I've got a gentleman here at the back. Fire away, sir.
Sorry, I can't hold it. Sorry. I'm Doug Harris. I'm a pharmacist. I happen to work in the pharmaceutical industry. I've looked at Manchester devolution, And the talk of non-organisational boundaries and people having the idea of working for the patient and serving the population, I agree with the aim, but I'm seeing very, very different behaviours on the ground where things are put in place to support a local hospital when if it was your business, you would put them elsewhere. And that's got to stop. My point I'm trying to make is, if we look at the devolution agenda, are we not being manipulated by a Conservative government with limited resources, with social care having been decimated and healthcare monies leaking into social care? We should be resourcing social care properly, as well as the healthcare, and then join our Tory government, I think.
Ros, I mean, that's probably you know what, we're not going to resolve that tonight, but
no, we are.
Certainly,
or in
I mean,
6 years. I've been doing this for 6 years now.
2010 or whatever, yeah. 20, yeah. I mean, the Better Care Fund, of course, is the last best hope we've got. It's not been a fabulous success, but I understand this time round the Better Care Fund comes with targets.
Yeah, it does.
Outcomes.
Yeah, it does come with that. It always has done to some extent. It was about local authorities and CCGs working better together. So it always had the potential for targets and meeting targets. But it was, you know, you don't have to do it as formally as that. You know, I work very closely. I'm on their board, on the CCG board. I go to their meetings. They're on the health and wellbeing board. They come to those meetings. But I'd see more of Simon and Catherine than I do of my husband. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing yet, but
is your husband here?
No. No. That probably explains a lot as well.
So glad my wife hasn't got Periscope.
No. Yeah. So sometimes it's
other
about,
lawyers are available.
Sometimes it's about understanding where the other person is in this particular whole range of things. It's about, and that's what we found with the multidisciplinary teams. You know, GP said to me, well, you know, I used to make a phone call to social services and nothing happened, and I used to think, lazy sods, what are they doing down there? But then when the social worker is upstairs in an office, it's a different relationship. Yeah. So the relationship, I had no concept of what GPs were. My GP's in the audience, by the way, so I don't want to, you know, she's absolutely amazing, I have to say.
Where is she?
She's an amazing GP. So, yeah, but
Last time I saw my GP was in Albufeira in Portugal.
Really?
I bumped into him in a restaurant, and he was there with the practice manager.
Oh,
I have no trouble getting an appointment. It's true.
Well, our practice manager's just retired, so I don't think we'll be seeing ours with him. So, no, not together. So look, I think my idea, because I'm not a clinician, my idea of what GPs did, I think I had a rather vague idea.
We don't know what GPs do because you can never get to see them.
No, do you know? No, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. No, but do you know what? I think I was very sceptical of how the CCG business was going to work. Honestly, I really was. I quite liked the way PCTs were, and I wasn't sure that CCGs were going to work very well. But I do think, in terms of what we have in Liverpool, it's worked very well. Now, I know, because I do a lot of work elsewhere in the country, working with public health and various things, I know it's not an experiment that's gone down very well in other places. So, you know, it's not gone elsewhere too good.
You just said public health there, and we've not talked about that.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, well, let's go to Ian. How would you judge the health of Liverpool?
Don't swear.
That's what Liverpool has made more progress than most cities in improving the health of its population, but it started from a very, very low ebb. So we've got some of the best quitting rates for smoking in the country, but on the other hand,
it's only measured over 6 weeks.
No.
No.
Well,
no, it's not longer than that.
Anyway, I think on annual figures, it's improved faster than other. So I think there is a real challenge in engaging the public, and I think these newspapers that are going through every door in Liverpool are part of the answer. There really is a challenge in engaging the
newspaper. Oh, Sue, really? The Paris case, right?
I know that it's your job to be
Facebook
controversial, but it really is important to try to engage individuals to take greater responsibility
But it is.
responsibility.
Let's talk about public health. Okay. I mean, the public health. The three great things in public health: childhood immunisation, adult literacy, clean water. Thomas McEwen, greatest public health doctor ever, I think, said 1969. He said that the rest is up to the extent to which government is prepared to interfere in the lives of ordinary people. And it's true, because seatbelts in cars, crash helmets on motorbikes, health and safety at work. We joke about it, but it has saved lives. Smoking in the workplace. It's the law that changes people's behaviour. So what law do you have about obesity?
You have a sugar.
Really? I mean, do you have a law that says...
minimum unit price for alcohol.
He mentioned it!
Or do you have a law that says no chip shop can have a doorway wider than 18 inches? Works for me.
Of course, regulation has got a really important part to play. And of course, Liverpool is the home of public health. The first medical officer, William Duncan.
Yes.
In the city.
And jolly fine man he was too.
He was.
Yes. So, I mean, but it's like, I think, yeah, you and Florence. It all, I mean, public health has interested me all my life. I mean, we can't solve the problems of the NHS really by the supply side. We have to go upstream and stop people getting sick in the first place. And the big debate really then for public health is, was it right to take it out of healthcare and shove it up the back passage of the town hall, where we've never seen them since? Discuss, Roz.
Well, with us, we keep the relationship. But actually, I think that one of the last things that our outgoing PCT chief exec said in his final speech, and he directed it at Catherine, I, and Dee Marchera, who was sitting in the room. As this is my advice, handing on the NHS to you guys. Is when money gets tight.
They always get clever when they leave.
Oh, I'm very wise.
Yeah.
When money gets tight, don't scrimp on public health. It's too easy to cut. And we've seen a set of cuts, and we don't even yet know this year's in-year cut check.
We should have known in December.
But I couldn't believe it when the head of public health said he was sanguine or relaxed about the fact their budget had been cut.
He's probably using his own product, I think. But what you can do...
What a great phrase. Is that a little budget phrase?
I think I got it off Miami Vice. But anyway, if you do what we're doing, come back to where I started. If you do the Healthy Liverpool programme that looks at everything, and you take, it's so tempting to keep the system quiet. It's so tempting to sign the checks that keep the journalists happy and keep everybody knowing that there isn't going to be a queue of ambulances outside Aintree Hospital. But the brave commissioner in the next 18 months will tolerate some of that whilst investing in our case, physical activity. Clinical evidence for outcomes of physical activity.
So if there was one thing you could do, what would it be? Public health?
Smoking.
Smoking.
50% of smokers die prematurely because of smoking.
What would you say?
Mine would be get every single Scouser more physically active.
Really? Well, like walking out football matches, that's...
Yeah. Brilliant idea, and it worked. I mean, they've been walking out to Goodison for years.
Other football teams are available. No, you're going to give me a polemic. Am I going to have to hit you on the head with a microphone?
No, because you're going to get it back. Just two things. One is, this morning, the Liverpool Community Health Trust has made 31 smoking cessation workers redundant. And public health redundant.
Really?
Yes. And
which one?
Liverpool Community Health.
Really?
Yeah. And
anybody hear from them?
And secondly,
you're what? You're a non-executive director, and you didn't know.
And secondly,
the service has been decommissioned.
Workers have gone.
That's outrageous.
And secondly,
just a minute. What did you sit behind you? What do you care to comment on that, madam?
Right, I'm apparently sorry it came out yesterday afternoon. I can't comment at the moment.
Isn't it?
It sounds...
It's a very stupid decision, isn't it?
I'm not saying anything.
I tried. Yeah.
And secondly, there's a...
The lady said... well, I don't know. We're trying to find out. The authority, yeah?
And secondly, there's a quote from George Young in 1992, where he said that it's not doctors and an operating theatre performing surgery that will improve the public's health. It will be politicians in parliaments, and if you've got politicians in governments that we have now that are cutting...
No, I'm not going to let you have another go. Not that I'm a great supporter of the government, but you've had 2 goes and it gets a bit tedious. But public health, I mean, there was a thought, wasn't there, originally, that the public health thing, it was about housing, it was about smog, it was about, you know, all the sort of things that local government could have done something about and went on to do with the help of legislation. You know, Ross, do you think that in this day and age where the public health is more now about personal choices and lifestyle, do you think that local government has a, I mean, you're going to say yes, there's a stupid way of phrasing the question, but let me put it the other way. What can local government do about the lifestyle issues?
Well, I mean, firstly, I think the Health and Wellbeing Board's been a great asset. I think,
Do you really?
Yeah, I do. And
Is anybody here on the Health and Wellbeing Board? Oh no, you don't. Anybody else on the Health and Wellbeing? I tell you what, some of them I find they're as flat as a
I think it depends on who's. The trouble is the government has not dictated, which is a good way really, of saying who's going to be on it. So what we tend to do in Liverpool, we've got the police on it, we've got the fire service, we've got a lot of services, we've got.
Sir Ian McCartney's got one up in Newcastle, and it's terrific. I went up and saw that. That was really good. Where you do get all the authorities on it coming together.
They actually did a peer review on the Newcastle one. They asked for a peer review.
They've asked for it?
Yeah, they asked for it and we had a look at it.
What do you think?
Yeah, it was very, very good. Very big, massive room. So, yeah.
Roy, I still think you're absolutely right to start. Things like education and housing are they're the major determinants of why we've got such a gap between the rich and poor, particularly in places like Liverpool. And at the end of the day, government is passing responsibility on the individual rather than taking action. No, it's got to be a bit of both, but there's education and housing is still the most important.
Do you think we've got a lost generation? Do you think we're going to have to give up on it and then start start afresh with public health?
Never give up.
Let's just lady here. Can I just how am I going to do this? Okay, fine.
Hi, I'm Helen Shaw. I'm the Communications Director from the Royal Liverpool. I just wonder whether...
How are you on the merge then?
Okay, I've got a question.
Yes.
So I'll answer your question first.
Thank you.
I think about the merger.
It's a good idea.
I think there's a risk that if we focus on the merger itself, we may lose sight of a much bigger prize.
Well, you'll just be taken over. It won't be merged, will it?
I'm genuinely not concerned about that. I think that we need to make sure that we tackle, your point earlier about being ambitious enough, I think if we all just become obsessed about whether the Royal and Aintree merge, we'll miss a much bigger trick. So that's my personal view.
Okay, well thank you for that.
My question is, in light of what you were saying about legislation and public health, do the panel members or other people in the audience think that we should be trying to get smoking in public places banned? I don't mean indoors, I mean everywhere.
Okay, fine. Put your hand up if you think, thank you very much. Put your hand if you think smoking in public places should be banned. Wow, look at that. Okay, Roz, you're going to do that? You can, you've got the power to do it.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't you do it?
Oh, I think there's a range of issues that
You've got nothing to do tomorrow?
Do you know what? I haven't. Yeah.
You could do it before you become
There's
there.
lots of things we can do.
Yeah.
Lots of things.
But what, are you going to do that?
We could very well look at it. I think that's quite a good thing to do.
You can?
Yeah.
So the mayor, you heard it here first, the mayor thinks it's a good thing to do.
I would actually like to stop these e-cigarettes all over the place as well, because I think they're absolutely appalling. There's pubs in this city that allow people to smoke e-cigarettes, and it's like smelling old slippers burning. It's disgusting.
Speak your mind, Ross.
I will.
I see you wearing a Fitbit.
Yeah.
What do you wear that for?
My steps.
It's a gimmick, isn't it?
No, my doctor said I've got to reduce my blood pressure, so I try and walk as much as I can. Try and beat myself every day from the day before.
What a load of old rubbish. Who's got a Fitbit? Put your hand if you've got one. What a load of old rubbish. What do you wear? What are you wearing, Mark? You look a bit fit to me. You want to go at me, are you? Go on.
Same as Ross said, count your steps, know where you're going.
Yeah.
Physical activity.
Really?
We're walking around South America this month.
Who else has got one? Yeah? Right, let's get around the back there. Oh, my darling Linda, whatever you've got is all right, I mean. Right, the gentleman right at the back here looks a bit fit to me. Come on, how am I going to get to you? You come to me, if you're that fit. Right. What do you wear? How much do you pay for that?
I get mine free with my insurance.
Oh, that's a pretty cute idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why are you wearing it? You could just put it in the drawer.
It puts points towards my fixed goals, and at the end of it, my insurance.
Well, it's obviously not working because you're a huge overweight guy.
my insurance can reduce in the price.
Really? Who else has got one? John, have you got the gentleman here got one? Have you got one? The pharmacist has got one. Yeah.
Just purely for physical activity.
It's just vanity, isn't it? I mean, it's just a little rubbish. There's no interoperability. You can't plug it in anywhere. Your GP's not interested that you've got one. I just think it's wacky. John's got one as well, haven't you? Yeah. You've got one. Got Apple. He's got an Apple.
Oh, that's
obviously, he's making too much money.
You stick one of our sensors behind that wall.
You're right. Listen, we're pretty much up against the buffers of time. And let me just ask you, who's optimistic about the future of healthcare in Liverpool? Put your hand up. Oh, look at that. That's very good, isn't it? Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, let's just give you all, the right to reply. Give 30 seconds. You optimistic, Ros, and why?
Yeah, I'm really optimistic. I think we've got some great people on the ground with some great ideas and the passion for making things happen. I think that's really important if you've got that commitment, and everybody in Liverpool wants to do the very best for the people that live here.
Yeah, I'm sure. Simon, can you answer anything in 30 seconds? Because I think you're...
I think if they give Jurgen Klopp enough money to spend over the summer, then I'm very, very, very
good. And Ian, having written your report, which had some dark passages...
I'm very optimistic, and I really think that you've painted this Aintree Royal thing in too much black and white. I think there's a huge appetite in Britain for having a bio-campus in the centre of the city, alongside the university, with a distributed model that includes Alder Hay, will include services here. But I think we do have a real vision and a real opportunity.
Yeah. Well, listen, can I just say, I mean, we've teased you something rotten tonight. I think you've had a good time. You've enjoyed yourself. Anybody want your money back? Because John is... Okay, fine. Can we... I think our panel have been terrific. I mean, can we say thank you very much? And we've had an hour and a half that's just flashed by. If you've been watching us on Periscope, thank you for that. If you've enjoyed the evening, my name is Roy Lilley. If you haven't, it's David Dimbleby. And good night from Liverpool. Thank you very much. Just hang on just a minute before you go. Just before you go, we do have. Are we off air?
No.
Oh, we're still on air.
Would you like me to knock it
Yeah,
off?
I think we want to be off air.